Well, that's how the
Talking about how people get pregnant.
babies get made.
That's how babies get made.
Rebecca is younger than I am, and all her friends are procreating.
It's a lot of pressure.
Well, and then so last night we found out that her friend, childhood friend from like kindergarten, Stuart, went to the wedding and all that stuff, and now like him and his wife, they're expecting. And we have been playing without a goalie for like a month. Well, she got off birth control about a month ago.
Okay.
She really got into getting off birth control, and then learning about birth control, and then learning about like all the side effects of birth control, which I didn't know. I just thought, you take a pill and...
No, think about it. It alters your entire body to make it so you don't get pregnant. It's like when you give your dog flea medication. Well, it has to go into their body and shift something so dramatically that when something bites them, wherever, it affects them. It kills the flea. So birth control it really goes in and toys with a lot of your balance.
Well, I didn't get that in reproductive health class.
Nobody did.
And she was really, really upset because she didn't get that. And she didn't get that
from the doctor.
From her doctors. And just during, that period, it really, she had to get the message out. And a lot of her, friends and women, she was sharing this with them, and they were, I don't know, appalled, freaked out, didn't feel like they were given, even my father.
Informed consent is what we call that. So in other words, we're giving you something. Here is all the information so that you can make a decision on whether or not you want to do this to yourself. Informed consent. It goes to everything that we do.
And the other thing too is I've noticed that, because we've been together 8.5 years, we would go to the doctor and then they would discontinue her brand, and then they would just give her another brand.
One. Yeah.
And I thought I'm very particular to my Tylenol.
Sure.
Has to be my Tylenol. And just to switch your medication over and just tell you it's kind of the same thing. And I'm like, is it really the same thing?
It can be, or maybe not. Could be different concoctions. It's just depends on what they're putting her on and why.
Right, but different, even something that I think is slightly different would have a slightly different impact on...
It can.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a really good documentary from the people who did Business of Being Born called The Business of Birth Control. So that would be something I would look into watching to help just establish a little bit more ground on what they're doing and why.
Okay. Yeah. Who are you?
Wow, it's a deep question.
Well, let's start with your name.
Yeah, my name is Laura Wright. I go by Laura Wright. My legal name is Wright-Desesa. Wright's my maiden name. I'm a mother of 3 wonderful children. I have a stepson who's in his 20s and living his life, and I have a 16-year-old son and a 13-year-old daughter. So it's been a journey. I'm a doula.
What the hell is a doula?
So doulas are there for pregnancy and delivery. So there's labor doulas and postpartum doulas, and bereavement doulas. And I'm sure there's others that I'm missing, but those are the bulk of it. A labor doula is someone that helps during pregnancy and during birth, childbirth, with information and physical support. A postpartum doula comes after the baby has arrived and helps you at home. Same way with physical, emotional, teaching you how to take care of your baby, helping you in the middle of the night or during the day, helping with sometimes light chores and things like that. And a bereavement doula is someone who steps in when there's a loss and comes in and helps families with the process of going through that.
Is the bereavement doula just for, infant death, or is it in general?
I'm sure it could go into other things.
Right.
But typically in the birth community, it's for loss of a child.
And doulas, typically are working on home births, right?
No. In fact, most of my births are in hospitals, where I actually personally feel that we are, for me, utilized more there.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, when you go to a hospital, you work with your care provider. You go to a hospital, you get whatever nurses on staff, love nurses. But they have other jobs and other clients, and they're doing the charting and handling their side of what's going on. The doula comes in and handles the caretaking, the massage, the explanation of things, the making sure dad feels good. Because I cannot tell you how many times during a labor I'll have a dad just look at me like, that's not my wife, what's happening, or partner. And everybody's like kind of doing things they've never done before, and they look up at me and I just give them a thumbs up, and this is good. These primal sounds are good. And so, we kind of help with everything in the room.
So do you prefer, or do you exclusively just work at hospital births, or do you do home births?
I do both.
You do both?
Yeah.
But you feel more comfortable in a hospital setting?
No, not necessarily. I just sometimes think, in fact, I'm more comfortable at a home birth. I think the mom's more comfortable if that's what she wants.
Right.
And everyone else there is more comfortable. It's a home environment. There's not machines going off. There's not interruptions for the most part. There's candles lit and everybody's kind of groovy. Where at a hospital it's a little more, four walls, and we work with it and we make it a beautiful environment, but it's different.
Yeah, one of the things when I was looking up definitions and that I thought was interesting, and this was on the Mayo Clinic's website, but I was looking up,
Sure.
what is a home birth? Part of the definition was a desire to give birth in a comfortable, familiar place. Period. And I thought, yeah, why don't we all do that? So I had, I told you, Enzo's 12, and with his mom, we had a home birth. Everybody else in my family thought we were crazy. Everybody else, all my siblings, my nieces, all my little guys are fine. But Enzo was the home birth. And my mother, who had 3 C-sections in the 70s and 80s, was completely freaked out and couldn't understand why we would take the risk of having a child at home.
Sure.
Is it riskier to have a baby at home?
No.
No?
No. You can't have a home birth if there's anything wrong or if there's anything that needs to be medically cared for. So you would risk out and then transfer from a midwife to a hospital. I risked out with my second. I had a home birth with my first. My dad said he was going to have an ambulance park outside my door for the whole birth. So I understand where your mom is coming from. I went through that with my family. With having a home birth, if you don't meet the criteria, you can't have one. So that in itself, we're not dealing with anything medical for the most part in that genre, meaning if your fetus isn't growing properly, if you're unhealthy, if you have preeclampsia, if there's certain things that mean that we may need another level of care, not that midwives don't do medical, they do, but if it needs the next level of care, you can't have a home birth unless you choose to do one with, a spiritual midwife, or to have an unassisted birth. You would risk out from most midwives. And I only speak for California, because I really, other states have different regulations and things. Like you could have a breech delivery, I think in Tennessee, at home with a midwife, but you can't here. So that's why I risked out, because my daughter was breech.
Breech is
upside down, butt first.
Yeah.
My daughter was butt first.
Yeah.
And I still was able to have a vaginal delivery with her, with a doctor that I found that was willing to do it. So if statistics show that home birth is slightly safer, if not on the same parallel as a hospital birth.
When Enzo's mom Danielle was going through, we're going through this, like we went to the doctor. We had
ultrasounds and
ultrasounds, but who's the OBGYN?
Yes.
We had a regular guy, and we did all the regular routine.
Yeah, all the visits, all the measurements, all the ultrasounds.
Everything was good, all the way up until the end. She even had a final, investigation or inspection.
Yeah.
So it was really, the doctor felt comfortable with the plan and kind of gave her the thumbs up as well.
To have a home birth. So you had care from a midwife as well as an OBGYN through your whole pregnancy.
Correct. And
That's cool.
if I recall, I think we also had ultrasounds through the midwife as well. So we have both versions of, and you know, it was actually, there was really no conflict. The doctor and the midwife kind of like basically were both on the same page. If there's something wrong, you're going to have it at the hospital. And this guy was like, hey, everything's good. You know, if you want to do it, could carry on with the plan at home, go ahead and do that. For some reason, I felt very comfortable in the idea. It just seemed more natural to me. I always tell people, like, 150 years ago, I guess, you know, like, there was really no hospitals. And I don't know if it's true or not, but I would hear women say, look, we used to just wrap our arms around a tree, squat,
Yeah.
and that's how we would do it.
Yeah.
And blip,
Yeah.
wrap it up, and then go back to work.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing this for, I don't know, how many thousands of years or millions of years.
Since the beginning of humans.
Since the beginning, and all of a sudden, like, this hospital thing, which is a good thing to have.
Yeah.
It's not, I think there's a lot of fear, people, men and women, about having a birth at home.
Yeah.
And I think, and maybe you know better, but I think sometimes, like, the pharmaceutical companies, they want the pain, and you want to get
The epidural.
the epidural,
Yeah.
and we watch it on TV all the time.
Oh yeah, right. Water breaks, epidural's in, baby's out. Mom screams. Here we are.
And mom is screaming. We were watching a TV show the other day, and she was giving birth to a baby, and like she looked, she was gonna die, and it was, and it's funny for TV. It was not my experience with Enzo, but you know, Rebecca has not had a child, and then she's watching this, and I'm like, this is really dramatic. And do you find that the entertainment exceeds the truth or reflects the truth?
I mean, like everything that we see, it seems to be the same thing over and over. The water breaks, she runs to the hospital, and here we go.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's epidural or not epidural. I loved on Friends how they seem to both, I think, have natural births. And I think Jennifer Aniston's character had a breech delivery. I think Emma, her baby, was breech. And I was like, okay, this is cool. At least we're moving forward a little bit. But the idea, you know, I think TV does that. They just make everything glorified.
Right.
For the most part. So it's scary. Because you think as a woman that you should always be like on guard. And labor is different. And it's different for everyone. And in 16 years of doing this, it's still different. Every birth I go to has something different about it. And that's because we're different. So the way we handle things, the way we cope, the way we feel secure changes with each human being that you work with. So yes, I think it's very glorified, and I think they make it much more dramatic. But then again, when you take away comforts, so what are the comforts, right? Feeling secure, feeling safe, warmth, dim lights. I mean, everybody's a little different. Some people want bright light, but for the most part, dim lights, no interruptions. What do we do when we go to a hospital? We have bright lights, we have interruptions, we have a room you've never been in before. You don't have your pillows or your bed or your comforter or your bathtub or your toilet. Think of how comfortable you are in your home toilet as opposed to anyone else's, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that don't poop when they're not at home.
If a shit comes on and I'm halfway to the gym, I will come back to the house.
There it is. That relates to birth. Because you want to be where you're comfortable. And you don't want to be watched. And you don't want to be heard. And you don't want to be, on that note, let me make sure it's not a mama. No, it's my doula partner.
She's on call.
I'm always on call.
This could end at any moment.
I may have to run. Actually, no. I would probably have a wonderful, warm conversation if it was a client and tell her what to do for the next phase that may be starting labor, may not be starting labor.
Yeah.
It's not like action hero most of the time.
Would you say, like, listen, I'm in the middle of an interview.
No.
I'll get back to you in a minute.
No.
Just breathe through it.
No. I would sit there and be on the phone and get her or him, if it's the partner, the dad, or whoever, to feel relaxed and confident in whatever's happening.
To me, it makes, even, you know, I took Enzo to get a physical this week or late last week. And just going into a hospital, it's automatically like it's tense.
Yeah, and there's a hierarchy, right? We go in feeling as though we're less than, especially as women, right? The doctor's up here, we're down here, we're supposed to do what they tell us, our parents taught us that, and medicine has its place. Mm-hmm. Home birth has its place, the hospital has its place. They're both necessary for good outcome. Whether or not those things are overused and the woman is not given the proper things to make her feel safe, those are the things I have issues with. The overuse of inductions, putting a mom into labor before she's due or after she's due, you know, allowing women to have the choice to do it or not do it and not feel pressured. So, I mean, there's just a lot of different little things that go on, and I feel not everyone wants a home birth, though. Like, I could have a woman think she wants a home birth, set up the home birth, all her friends tell her to do the home birth, but you can tell.
Yeah, she's not committed.
She's not committed.
Right.
She is not feeling safe, and we transfer.
Yeah.
A lot of home birth transfers are, one, because the mom's tired and she wants some pain relief, fine. Two, because she really didn't want a home birth, and she will not let go until she goes to the place she's comfortable in. And for some people, that is a hospital, and that's great. You know, my job is to get down to that part.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's nice to have the choice, right? If you want to go to your hospital and have it done,
That's
and that's your safe space,
Yep.
right? And that's your good place, and that's your good place. You know, certainly, like, I wouldn't want to have, like, you know, heart surgery in my house.
Nope.
You know, if you're gonna do something, especially like giving birth, because it doesn't happen all the time. If it makes you feel good, go there. So, are the pools popular? The birthing pools?
Oh, yeah.
Do they get used?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Not in the hospital.
Right at home.
At home.
Between the toilet for laboring and the pool for laboring I feel like the pool looks really great in the videos, but I felt like the toilet.
Well, it depends. What are we doing? You know, if you're, let's say you're 6, 7, 8 centimeters going through transition, that water just, you know, and not for everyone.
Right.
Some people think they're going to like the water. They get in, it doesn't work for them.
Some people build the pool, fill the pool. Nobody sticks a toe in the pool.
Yeah, most people use it, but yes, that has happened. So it depends. So one of my tricks, I work at Cedars a lot, and one of my tricks with a mom, if I notice that she's holding something back, I'll say to the nurse, can I just have a few minutes with her in the bathroom? Just, you know, if there's a reason you need us, come knocking, but otherwise just give me some time. I'll get her in the bathroom. I got candles going. Maybe her water has released so they don't allow her in the tub, but I run the water anyways because we hear it. Sometimes we feel it. And we'll get her on the toilet if she's comfortable doing so. I put a pillow behind her and we just breathe and sit there and breathe, and everything switches. It's like, I call it my magic room. And it's because it is a bathroom, because it's a smaller space, because it's darker, because nobody's entering or exiting the room. Even little tiny tweaks like that make a huge, huge difference in the way a woman feels safe. And as soon as she feels safe, as soon as that fear goes away and that pressure goes away, her hormones work, her endorphins work, her body works, and everything starts to shift. That can be a toilet. That could be getting her in a room that's dark. It could be getting her in a tub. It could be me leaving the room and having her husband get in the hospital bed with her, or have her husband get in bed with her in her home, and me not watching, not sitting there. You know, I think when I first started my career, I felt like this is on me. I've got to carry this. I've got to do everything. No, sometimes I got to not do anything and allow them to connect and create that oxytocin, the love hormone.
It's pressure.
It's total pressure.
You know, the doula's here. I got to go.
Yeah. If I'm not making progress, what is she thinking about me? Think of all the things we as humans worry about. What is this person thinking I'm doing? Am I doing it right? You know, I remember looking up at my doula when I gave birth to my son, Nico, at home. And I think I looked at her and I said, what am I doing wrong? And she said, stop thinking, because it's a passive sport.
Right.
Get in the back seat of the car. This is not a forebrain effort. This is primal.
Interesting.
So toilet, tub, hanging from a yoga trapeze, being in a closet, laying on a floor, being in a bed. It doesn't matter where. It just matters that they're happy there.
I was reading that, like, hospitals now that have natural birthing
Like little
section,
centers opening, yeah.
some people were, like, you know, being encouraged to, like, bring pictures or familiarities from your household and kind of decorate your room.
Oh, yeah.
So that I guess you can start to relax or you feel comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think we started kind of shifting away from, the experience of having, your children at home and then having to go to the facility?
Well, I mean, that just happened because medicine was able to save,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when you live in a society, like if everyone was having home births, we'd have problems, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone's meant to have a home birth.
Right.
There are problems that come up. There are things that can happen, sure. So as we grew stronger with medicine and with all of the different interventions, well, those started kind of helping out in those certain small percentage of people that needed to have that assistance. The problem comes, and I'm sure I'll get backlash on this, but I really don't mind. The problem comes in with what a litigious society we are. So we expect our doctors to be gods, and when they make a mistake, we sue them. So if you were an OBGYN and you had a client call you and they said, oh, this is happening, what's the safest answer for the OBGYN to say?
Go to the hospital.
Go to the hospital. Why?
Because it's the
standard of care, right?
There you go.
So if that's the standard of care and that's what we rely on, then we are not allowed to make decisions. We're not being told by our OBGYN, okay, your water is released. Now, I have some that do this, which is wonderful, but not all. Stay home. Let's see if labor starts. Because they feel safer, the doctor, feels safer having you under care than allowing you to make a choice as to whether or not you want to go in right away or not. And that can happen in so many different instances. I have a mom right now who her doctor wants to induce her today, and she's due today. And she's asking me how she should handle that. And my answer is always exactly the same every single time. Study it, figure out what your doctor's saying, what the downside is of going, what the plus side is of going, why are you being induced? What are the percentages of outcomes? What are those outcomes? And then make a decision that works for you. And then call and talk to your doctor. Have an open discussion with them regarding how you feel. But we are kind of trapped in this. Nothing's harder than, and even for me. So I have a breech baby after my home birth. I'm 33 weeks pregnant. My fluids are low. I'm being told I should have a C-section that day. I'm working with my perinatologist. I talk him into letting me go home with my midwife, who literally just brought me in her home, and get IVs and see if we can get my fluids up. I had a cold, so all these things made sense. I got my fluids up, but I was still left with the decision of, do I try to find a midwife, like a spiritual midwife? Those are ones that don't work under licensure, so they're a little bit more flexible. Mm-hmm. Do I travel to a state where they allow breech deliveries at home and have one in Tennessee at the farm, Ina Mae Gaskin's farm, right? Or do I go into the medical establishment? Because at that point you hear all these statistics and all these numbers and all these things, and you start worrying about, this is a big deal. I don't want to take any risks. But life is a risk. So there's that thin line of, am I making the right decision? And when your care provider comes to you and says, well, I think you should do this because, well, this could happen or that could happen, or all the what ifs can happen, it weighs heavy. You're no longer 3 months pregnant. You are now holding your baby this close to being outside of the womb. And those decisions become, in your heart, a lot of times, a matter of life and death. That's the way it feels. And so it's hard to make those decisions towards the end and to feel confident and safe in them, unless you have a lot of people behind you, supporting you and cheering you on.
Yeah, that's something I've not really thought too much about.
Yeah, that's what this mom's going through right now.
That's pretty
There are
heavy.
some statistics. Those statistics are minor, but even a minor statistic can weigh heavy.
Yeah.
Right? It weighs heavy on the obstetrician, who feels responsible too.
When my mom, when she had me, it was because her C-section, the tube was tied around my neck.
Oh, the umbilical cord.
Umbilical cord.
It's actually very normal.
And when Enzo was, making his appearance, she said, oh, cords wrapped around his neck, and I remember like I instantly hit my target heart rate. I panicked. Like,
Oh yeah, because you thought that was the reason mom had a C-section,
yeah,
right?
I was like, this is not
Yeah.
good. And the assistant midwife went and did this,
Just pulls it over.
and that was it.
Yeah.
And I was like, because I was ready to go. Like I was grabbing the bag. I'm like, all right, we got to go. And she's like, oh, he's fine. And I was like, what just happened? She's like, oh, just tied it. And I was super impressed by that, because when my mom tells the story, I always call, women in general, moms, when their kids have birthdays, I usually pick up the phone and I say, happy birthday day.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember shit. I don't remember anything.
But you remember your birth.
Yeah. But, they're there.
Yep.
Takes them to that moment. That left this, my mom's situation, I've been hearing it over and over again. Well, the cord was wrapped around his neck. You
And that's why, yep, it's very scary. Yeah.
And it was so easy the way that she just, fixed it or straightened it out or unwrapped it.
Yeah.
Where that was like really a moment where I thought to myself, like, there's a lot of things out there that are simple fixes.
Yeah, or variations of normal. They're normal.
Normal.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything against, hospitals and doctors, but I think with the internet and information being out there, and doctors, I think good doctors, like I've had the same general physician for a long time, at least 13, 14 years now. And the one thing that I always liked about him the most was he would always say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And, with internet, I'm coming in and I got all this
Oh,
stuff.
I'm sure you are.
And he would just say, no, I don't know. And if I, use like a naturopathic doctor and I'll bring that information to him, he'd have a conversation with me and he'd look at me and he goes like, that sounds really fucking interesting. I need to look into that. Like,
Yep.
He didn't know. And I felt a lot more comfortable in him not knowing, because I felt that he wasn't going to give me bad information at the risk of him looking ignorant.
Or just saying, no, that's all honky. No.
Or saying that's all BS.
Yeah.
know.
That's not real. That's all made up stuff. Yeah.
Our old school doctors in Miami, Florida, our Cuban doctors from Miami, I mean, it's just so different depending on, I guess now your age, because my doctor's about my age, so he's grown up with it. Mm-hmm. It just makes your relationship with your doctor and your doula makes such a big difference.
It's
right?
everything. I always say that your obstetrician, if you're having a hospital birth, your obstetrician is the puppet master. I've watched nurses treat people differently, not in a bad way, but just have different protocol almost based on the doctor they're working for. Because each doctor kind of has their own set way of doing things. Whether they allow for this or allow for that, or whether they're okay with you eating or not eating, or intermittent monitoring, meaning just watching the baby 20 minutes every hour. Everybody's a little bit different. And so I always say, when you meet with your doctor, have the hard discussions early and see their reaction. I always say, watch their face more than their words. Not that they would lie, but just watch how they react to the things you're asking for. Make sure you find someone that's paired up with your wants. Same thing goes with a midwife. Midwives are very different. We're all individuals, Some are more conservative, some are not. And so you can find a good match for yourself, but you have to have the hard discussions early. That's where doulas come in. We set you up with a list of things to ask based on your needs and what you want, and maybe things you didn't even know you should ask, so that you get lined up. The worst thing for me, and the reason I left my corporate job to become a doula, was when I was pregnant with my son, the only time I found out answers was when I was digging for things. Nobody was saying, oh, here, these are all your rights. Mm-hmm. You have a right to ask this question, to get this answer, and then choose a different care provider or choose a different route. That what we tend to do is we go in and we just do what our doctor tells us, and that's not the right way to practice medicine in my mind. First, do no harm.
Question everything.
Question everything. Yeah. Why not?
No,
you never get a do-over.
I'm always amazed that, it's like nutrition labels at the store.
Natural flavors.
We just read at least read the nutrition label.
Yeah, but even that we have to question what natural flavors are. That's almost a joke.
Absolutely, but at least know that it's on the label. Be familiar, especially it's not the thing that you buy once in a while. It's Thanksgiving is coming up. There's cookie dough.
Oh yeah.
Made its way into the house.
Oh, I'm sure.
For baking, but it's not something that we have in the house all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel that, if it's something that part of your daily routine, it's gonna, or something like having a baby that's gonna have a dramatic impact in your life, all the research you should know, as much as you possibly can.
Well, we're not being taught. You said it in the very beginning. You didn't know because you weren't being taught. Like, it's not the information you have to dig for when we're talking about birth control. You really have to dig for it. Why are we not learning about the reproductive system in its complexity with birth control medications, different things, as well as birth, as well as learning how to, balance a checkbook. I don't know it balances a checkbook, but you know what I mean, doing your Quicken.
Right.
Or learning how to cook good, healthy food. We're not learning a lot of that. Even my daughter, who's in a cooking class in junior high, they're making like desserts. They're not being taught how to, make Brussels sprouts.
Yeah. If they could teach them how to make them taste good.
I make them really good.
Actually, Rebecca's Brussels sprouts are pretty good.
Nice. I'd always had a health background. I worked for Solgar Vitamins. I worked for Gaia Herbs. I'd always been knee deep in finding homeostasis in the human body via non-medical route, and then using medicine when necessary. So medicine to me is like the last resort. When necessary, I'll use it, sure. But I have 3 children. One, I think, has been on antibiotics once. The other 2 have not. None of them have had earaches. None of them have had any of the childhood things. They've been sick. They get sick, and then they recover, because being sick is part of the growth of our immune function.
Sure.
So for me, and being that their father's a chiropractor and a naturalist as well, that's the way we go, because that's where my research went. So I always say to people, if you want to know, dig in. And it's uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable amount of research. And it's hard to read sometimes.
And also, regardless, we can all interpret the same research and have a take it and walk away with a different take. But at least you're informed.
Yeah, and I also feel science has gotten a little backwards too, almost as though studies can prove something that they want to prove instead of really being blanketed. So you have to look into the study, how many people were in it, what were the parameters, and so doing that deep dive is a lot. But these are the only bodies we have.
When I started watching, who Gabriel Iglesias is?
Yeah.
Fluffy. Yeah. So he's got his special on, he did Dodger Stadium. It just came out. And of course, like, he's talking about, like, he didn't do anything for 2 years because of COVID. And he was forced to get the vaccine because he wanted to work.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people.
And he's very, however you feel about the vaccine, and so am I. But the one thing during that period that I took the most issue with was when they started coming out with the, who was the most at risk. He starts talking about, like, the risk, who is the most at risk? Overweight.
I was going to say him.
Pre-diabetic.
Right.
And he listed a couple other things, and he's
high
like,
blood pressure.
He's like, holy shit, that's me. And I think he said that he went on a diet, lost like 70 pounds during that period.
That makes me happy for him.
But during that time when that research started coming out, I'm like, open the gym. Like, if anything, open the gym.
We were very lucky to be able to work out during that time. A lot of gyms were closed.
A lot of gyms were closed. But and then when they started putting them outside in the parking lots, exercise in general, everybody should exercise in general for general well-being. Not at the level maybe that I or you exercise all the time, but especially during that period, I was really frustrated with, it's like, you can't go to the gym, but the drive-through at McDonald's was still open.
Or you could get your alcohol delivered on Postmates.
Or you could get your alcohol delivered.
That was when the first time, I remember we were in Big Bear, and I got a beer, and I was like walking the streets, and I'm like, this just feels so strange. Like, you could just now have alcohol anywhere.
Yeah.
In your car, like all the places we weren't supposed to do that. And it was all fast food, and that was all that was open. So our entire social lives became eating alone. Yeah. Yeah, I had trouble with that.
There was this, like, people mentioned that, like, during periods in our history, like the Great Depression, they said the best way to manage people is to give them, like, keep their vices inexpensive. So keep them, like, keep those cigarettes cheap, and
keep them flowing.
Keep the booze going, and
it keeps you quiet. Marijuana was legalized just prior to COVID in California. Interesting. I'm sure it didn't link up, but in my head I was like, okay, well, everybody's docile and at home eating and smoking weed. Not everyone, but, you know, I'm sure masses were.
I don't like the pot.
Yeah.
I'm a terrible pothead. I get paranoid. I'm tense.
It's not for you.
People tell me, you got to try a different strand. And I'm like, I don't need to try any
You
strand.
don't need it.
No.
If you don't need it, you don't need it, right?
No, I'm good. I'm good without it. Gummies, sleep aids, chewies.
But it was an essential. It was considered essential. So nurses, doctors,
right, it was medicinal.
Food, and marijuana and alcohol were all considered essential during one of our greatest, you know, disease states, so to speak. Yeah, it was interesting how that went down.
Just would have been nice. The government would have stepped in and said, "Hey, if you can't afford a gym membership, we're going to pay for it." I think, you know, things like
that should be that way.
Kaiser, at least Kaiser right now, they're always sending me stuff that they'll pay for your gym membership.
Yep. And a lot of gyms have elderly programs or first responder programs, which is wonderful. But, you know, I think a lot of people are working 9, 10, 11 hours a day doing, you know, their hardcore jobs, probably different than what you and I do.
Right.
Right. When I work, I could be gone for 3 days. So I work. But when I'm not working, I have time. And so we're able to make the gym part of really what we are. Mm-hmm. I don't think a lot of people have that option. Imagine working 10 hours straight and then going home to kids and eating dinner and then going to the gym or getting up at 4 a.m. and going. That's rough.
Well, I like going to the gym. I don't need the gym.
I do.
I think so. I think people need the gym, right?
Do.
They need to go. When I go to our gym, I call it
social
it's
hour.
my social hour. So just yesterday, like Brian, or the other day, they're like, "Hey, where the hell you been?" And I'm like, I go to the gym where I don't know anybody.
So you can actually work out.
So I can work out.
Yeah.
But I go to the gym over here to say hello.
Yeah. See, I'm able to do a little bit of the social, but I wear the headphones and just go back to what I'm doing. I'm not known for having long discussions at the gym. I don't think anyone should. But if you want it to be social, but I think it's really medicating for a lot of people. I think it is. I think it's a nice habit.
I always tell people, if I'm at the gym, I'm not in my kitchen.
True. You like food.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's like I work a lot from home. You know, kitchen is right behind us.
Yeah.
I know what's in there. My nickname back home when I was a little boy, my nickname is Gordito. My mom calls me Gordo. Really? Fat kid.
Were you overweight as a child?
I was a chubber.
Yeah.
By today's standards, I think I fall more into the normal range. But back then, you know, I was always good for wedgies and titty twisters. And I shopped in the Husky section of Sears.
Okay.
Probably today they would have some sort of PC issue with having a chubby section.
Right.
That got me into exercise because I had a grandfather, you know, start saying, hey, you know, you got to exercise, you got to start running, you got to start working out. And then that's just always kind of stuck with me.
What a wonderful gift.
And I think a lot of people at the gym, it's just more, you're working through stuff.
Absolutely.
You're working through stuff.
Oh, yeah. Gym, on a hike, wherever you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like when I see moms that are just about to like pop any moment, like in a spin class.
Totally.
Rebecca and I, like I was telling you earlier, we're not 100% safe. I call it, people ask, how you doing? I'm like, I'm just making a mess right now. In terms of, you know, getting prepared for pregnancy, do you have a recommendation on where to start or
Everyone's
how to start?
different. So it depends on what your go-to is. For me, it was going to the Valencia Wellness Center and seeing Kim Wall and discussing with her, having her make me remedies. And then she actually got me pregnant after a year and a half of trying. And it was one thing that she did, so I always joke that she got me pregnant. And we did it with both of my children. So she's the mother of both of my children. Love her dearly. She's moved to Tennessee. I think Tennessee, yeah. But everyone's different. So I went to what I do. You should go to what you do. So is it herbology? Is it Chinese medicine? Is it acupuncture? Is it meditation? Is it yoga?
I think for us, you know, we're open.
You don't know.
And we don't know, right?
So you can test drive some of them and see how they feel.
Are there classes available to, you know, because there were plenty of things that we could have done after she was pregnant.
Yes. Not a lot of prep classes. That's a really interesting idea. There's some places that I could probably look into and see if they have a pre-pregnancy or, you know, -1 trimester, you know, the early
Or maybe you can start a business.
Yeah. You know, there's so much to it. There really is. I know there's fertility places.
Right.
And there's either acupuncture fertility or herbal or all those different things, or medicalized fertility. But I don't know if there's a lot of pre-pregnancy. It's very interesting.
You know, as Rebecca, she's been with Endo since he was 3.
That's when I got my stepson.
You know, as we're starting to get ready now, you know, she's looking at things and we need this or we're gonna need that. And I'm going through my mind, I'm like, you're gonna need any of that shit. Like, we didn't use any of that shit. And
yeah, I'm
and
a
she's
minimalist.
Like, huh?
I'm a minimalist when it comes to getting all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm good. Like, let her get all the stuff,
Yep.
but because
Makes her happy.
I'm like, we're gonna get this. We're gonna paint the room. We're gonna get the crib and the thing. And I always, like, Enzo was 5.5 pounds, and I don't know for how many weeks I slept on my back, and he just slept in my palms. Like, my hands kept him warm. We didn't use the co-sleeper, and you know, we didn't use the crib lasted like a week. Like, he climbed out of the crib before he could walk.
Yep.
And clothes, like, he was in his diaper all day long. Like, there was, and everybody gives you a bunch of shit.
Oh yeah.
Like, people.
Oh yeah. Especially your friends have already started procreating, so you're gonna get the downflow.
Yeah. And it's not like they're even giving you a gift. They're like, oh, here's some things. No, they're like unloading their shit on you. They're like, here.
They're
like,
thrilled.
Yeah. People just leave a bag of fucking baby clothes on your doorstep. You don't know who they are.
Yep.
They're just getting rid of it.
Yep. We all do it.
In our classes at that time, there was a home birthing class, which was a ton of fun. And there with a bunch of couples. I think that probably brought a lot of the comfort and the relaxation.
Oh yeah.
Of going into this experience, because, and I don't know if this exists, but going into more of a traditional hospital, I guess, or not traditional, but just a hospital type of scenario.
Yeah.
Are there birthing group classes to prepare you for going into the hospital?
There's the hospital versions, which typically, not always, but typically revolve around the medications you can have, when to show up, what the hospital is like, and what their care is like. Then there's ones away from the hospital, which there's tons of places you can go. I mean, from super hippy dippy to hypnobirthing, which is what my background is in, to, you know, just the basics, to weekend courses, hypno babies. There's so many different ones you can find now.
I highly recommend whichever one says a potluck, you know, for the weekly meeting.
The food? Yeah.
Well, they'd show us the video. Nobody'd be eating, and I'd be the guy in the kitchen, and I'm like, the hummus is good, and you know, she's
bring the food. I don't see pregnant women not wanting to eat.
Not during the video so much. You'd be surprised. I did. I remember Wendy, who ended up being our doula. She kept laughing because the video would come on. People get dark. People would stop munching, and I'd like pop up and I'd go to the kitchen and I'd start snacking.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really entertaining. And I don't know if maybe I felt more comforted by eating and watching than if I was just sitting still and watching.
Maybe.
What's your specialty that you mentioned, hypnobirthing?
Yeah, my background is in hypnobirthing. That's what I did when I was pregnant with my son. And that's what got me to the point where I wanted to have a home birth and got me to a place where I wasn't afraid of birth. I never really wanted children. Like, it wasn't even in my soul to even think about having children. And then when I got my stepson, I just fell in love. And I like got it. And I was like, this is what it's about. And then when we were pregnant, I just remember feeling really frustrated. And I think I was just at the end of my rope. And I found the hypnobirthing and I took the course, and it opened me up to the reality that birth isn't something to be afraid of. It's, you know, you don't plan for the worst. When we go out our front door, we don't say, okay, today if I get hit by a car, I'm going to do A, B, and C, but we treat pregnancy like that. And so I found another way around it, where all I did was put good into it. And if anything came up, then I would deal with it, just like anything else in life. But for me, putting positive and positive and positive into it over and over and over, there's a photograph of me in my living room, and I'm laughing and walking around. I'm like 9 centimeters. 8-9 centimeters, talking, laughing, walking, enjoying.
You're like crowning and
no,
and
not there yet. But that was a little more intense and focused. But it was a really nice experience. And so for me, not for everyone, I always say hypnobirthing is a tool. And if you want it in your tool belt, get it.
What is hypnobirthing?
So hypnobirthing is utilizing self-hypnosis to create comfort during labor.
So you're like yourself.
Yeah.
To an extent, okay.
Well, you just learn.
Or like
all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. No one ever can do anything to you. You have to choose to accept it and feel it and do it.
Or like learning Lamaze to breathe through it, or
it's just another
thing.
Tool in the tool belt.
And this is your specialty.
Oh, it's what I've been doing for a long time.
You've been doing it. Do you teach this?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
No, I have no interest in teaching.
So this is just for you.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, I have clients who do it. I've used it on clients who never took any of the classes, never practiced it, because I know the lingo, I know how to go into it. And I have clients who use it that it works amazingly for. I have clients who take the classes but maybe don't practice and it doesn't get as ingrained, or they don't trust it. I always say the hypnosis works when you trust it, as with most things, right?
Sure.
You just open yourself to it and then it works. They can use hypnosis for surgeries. So, right?
I agree. I just wrote something, God, the other day. I get tired of people saying God willing, God willing, God willing. And I'm like, God willing, get your ass to the, like if you're overweight and you're pre-diabetic, God willing, I'll get to the, I'm like, go to the gym, dude. God willing.
That's the free will.
And I just was thinking to myself, like a lot of times people say God willing, and I'm like, look, God willing, sometimes you gotta do work.
Yeah, most of the time.
Put time and effort and energy and research and maybe go through something that's dark or ugly or scary and get to the other side of that. And most of the time when you get to the other side of those things, you realize, oh, that wasn't so dark and so scary. Or I'm glad I really did that. I'm now better prepared for something.
Yep.
At the end of it, you have more information.
Yeah.
And you just ultimately make a better decision. Can I tell you a couple more stories from mine, and then we'll
I'd love it.
go on, and you can go about your day. You said Friends. One of my favorite moments in television for me was when Chandler and is it Monica, they're trying to get pregnant, and they're struggling and they're doing all these things, and Joey just sits there and says, dude, just get her drunk. As ridiculous as that sounds, I have to say that what I always took from that was they were relaxed.
Yeah.
People get pregnant, maybe, I don't know if there's like a real hard statistic on if you're more likely to get pregnant when you're drunk, but I would say that you're probably more relaxed. You're probably more, it's a lot of pressure.
It is.
If it doesn't happen right away.
Yes. And there's a lot of social, environmental pressures from friends and everybody asking you all the time. And it's a lot. A lot of women get pregnant once they quit trying.
Yeah.
It says something.
And my sister, she tried for quite a long. Rebecca's parents tried for. She kept having miscarriages,
Oh.
and I think that they had one that. I think there was one that went a little further along, but ultimately I think it was like 8 or 9 years, and then
It's a long time.
And then the twins showed up.
Wow.
And I think twins showed up, and Dad and Mom were like, "Sit."
Yep, we're good.
Yeah. So relaxing, I guess, has a lot to do with it.
Also, sometimes there's other things at play, but yes, relaxing is one of the things. I have a client who really wants to get into labor, and she's like, what should I do? What should I do? What should I do? And one of the funnest things that I get to say is nothing. Stop trying. You're exhausting yourself. You're traveling an hour to see this doctor and traveling. Just take a day. You can do things. You can still do things, but just for a moment. Sit down, talk to your body, talk to your baby, eat food that you love, go on a walk, and don't think about it. If you think about it, allow it to be there, let it go, move on. And a lot of times that will kind of help regulate everything. Yeah, we work better when we're not freaking out.
Yeah. My other TV and film reference is Seinfeld.
Yes.
Newman.
Yes.
So Newman is a character in the Jurassic Park films.
Oh, yeah.
Enzo loves them, and Enzo loves the Wayne Knight character in Jurassic Park and does a lot great impersonation of him. But we took a breastfeeding class. Breastfeeding classes exist.
Yes,
and,
thank God.
And boobies are out.
Yeah, they are, as they should be.
Signed up for this class, and I just remember it was just going to be another couple, so it was going to be small and intimate. And I show up, and it's Wayne Knight and his wife,
Wow.
Newman, and his wife, and I'm there about to take a breastfeeding class with this guy.
Yep.
And I really need somebody that's a little bit more mature than I am in this type of scenario. He was not that.
I was going to say.
And even going through the experience of, I mean, it just sounds ridiculous, right? Like, oh, teaching how to breastfeed. But then I hear, and I've had some family members, like, you know, struggling when the baby's not breastfeeding or latching. And I'm like, everybody should take a breastfeeding class. Again, it's just, I feel like there's not a lot of preparation going into it. And then it makes it harder on moms or new moms, because they're trying to figure everything out on the fly when they have the baby, as opposed to saying, oh, I remember this. Or we had an experienced mom come and talk to us, and she said, oh, that happened to her, don't worry about it.
Mm-hmm. Or having a contact that you can then later refer back to and call, like a lactation consultant to work with.
Or even a doula, just to say, hey.
Yeah, we can help with the little stuff. We are not educated like full-blown lactation consultants are. They go to school for like years. I think it's like 2 years total when you add it all up. But yeah, we help with the little stuff. But taking the class helps kind of give you a foundation, I think. And then you utilize that foundation. But the most important thing in my mind with breastfeeding, or one of the most important things, is community and support. Sometimes we have the pediatricians weighing the baby on day 3 before the milk comes in. Baby's weight's low. Mom starts getting really nervous and concerned. Baby's weight's low. My milk's not here. That frustration, what do you think that does to let down? What do you think that does to milk production? It halts it, just like with labor. Fear, fear, fear. So having support and having people behind you telling you you're doing good, and also having proper checks for tongue ties or any craniosacral work being done on baby. There's like so many different little things that, again, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. And then the formula gets shipped to your house before you give birth. The companies know who you are. Somehow they get your name and information. They know you're pregnant. At around month 7, they start shipping you Infamil.
And coupons.
I don't know if they do that anymore,
discounts.
But I feel like they do. But they did with me, and it was like, great, I'm donating it because there are people who need formula, and it's a wonderful thing to have for a woman who cannot find human milk for her baby. But to have it shipped to your door, and then at 3 a.m. when you're having that fear, you're exhausted, you haven't slept, yada, yada, it's so easy to reach into the cupboard and pacify when maybe it's not necessary. You know, and so there's a lack of support. You don't even see your OBGYN for 6 weeks after giving birth, unless you have a C-section. But 6 weeks, that's a long time. When you have a home birth and you work with a great midwife, my midwife came 6 times to my home after I gave birth. That's a lot. She was being nothing but sweet. Most come 2 to 3.
Yeah.
That's huge. So the support.
Yeah, they showed up a couple of times.
Yeah. Wasn't that nice, instead of getting in the car and going to a pediatrician right away or whatever?
I mean, even that, I picked a pediatrician. We didn't have, we had like the state health care at the time, Medi-Cal. But we found a great pediatrician, and I just paid her out of pocket, and she was nice enough to give us like an extreme discount. And so Enzo, you know, got seen by a doctor that, you know, we felt comfortable with. And it was like super, I felt like celebrity, because the office was like just kind of open just for him, and he hadn't been to a doctor yet. And
you're like covering him. He's little too.
Yeah, and I really had such a great experience. I know not everybody has as good fortune, and
but you sought it out. There's a difference. We either take what we're given or we seek out more. And when we seek out more, even under financial distress, you'll find places that have empathy.
Sure.
And you'll be met. So you actually sought it out. You sought her out instead of just going status quo with whatever overstuffed practice you would have been sent to. So that says a lot about you. So that's huge. And I think all people need to know you can ask for more.
And I also think like it's all in the way, you know, if you ask people a certain way and you come from a certain place in a certain way, you get a lot more love.
Yeah. Sugar attracts flies, or what was it? Honey's better than vinegar, whatever the adage is, right?
And being relaxed. Again, I'm looking at your boobs because I'm going to say
breastfeeding class.
Breastfeeding Does beer really improve?
This is so funny. So I gave birth to Tara, my little breech one, in the hospital. My midwife came. She was there for the whole thing. She was lovely. And then she came to my house the next day with a 6-pack of beer. And I remember thinking, this is the funniest thing to me, because I hadn't yet understood that. But yes, hops. So it's not...
It's the hops.
Well, and beer.
Alcohol, relaxing.
Again, yeah, but I think it's supposed to be more about the hops. But I will entertain the reality that the beer also calms your ass down. Now, she was my second delivery. Like, I had my son. My first kid he was 3 when I got him. He was my easiest labor. But the second one, I was like freaked out the whole time. Beer would have done me good. You know, or if I have a mom at home and she's going into labor, but it's whatever, it's just not going good, and it's 3 a.m. and she can't get out of her head and she should be resting. You know, a lot of times midwives will recommend, or even some of my doctors, Benadryl. I always feel like if their mind's going crazy, the Benadryl works good. If they're just excited, the wine works good.
Yeah.
And I have seen a few moms have a glass of wine and change their labor.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it all comes down to comfort.
And for all of those that are really upset, you know, like, I think to like the 70s and 80s, moms were like drinking and smoking.
My mom was smoking, yeah. Yeah, no, we're talking a glass of wine, not a bottle of wine.
Not a bottle.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're talking European, but probably less. Yeah.
Okay, so like a proper...
Think of if you haven't had a glass of wine,
yeah,
maybe
it'll
6.
hit you.
If you haven't had it for 9 months, just 6 ounces, 4 ounces, whatever is going to calm you down. They offer you morphine when you go to a hospital.
Yep, that's heavy.
Morphine and morphine derivatives, not necessarily morphine, but they offer you heavy narcotics. You can get them intravenously. They're using the epidural, that doesn't tend to mess with you like the intravenous ones, but a glass of wine as opposed to that. Like, let's look at what's our options are and where we want to go with them. I never had a glass of wine because all my labors were great and whatever and fabulous. But the beer after for the breast milk, yeah.
Oh, I had a glass of wine.
I bet you did. I have dads bring bottles of champagne to the hospital and pop the cork and, yep.
Our midwife, and I'll ask, I was saving this one for last, but how many deliveries have you been a part of?
Close to 800, I would say, but I haven't been counting for a few years. I used to have a much busier practice, but as I've gotten older, you know, you burn out. And I didn't want to have a major burnout. COVID was kind of nice because I just did a few home births here and there, and I did virtual, you know, doulaing, and so that was a really nice break. I do, you know, 2 to 3 a month now, but yeah, somewhere in that range. A lot. They're all different.
The doula that kept laughing at my jokes while I would eat and watch the video, we ended up interviewing her, and we just interviewed one. Wendy. Do you know her? Did I say this already?
No. Where were you located?
We were in we're in LA. We were in Beachwood Canyon at the time. I forget where
Maybe
she was.
I do. We all tend to know each other.
She's on my Facebook still.
If you show me her picture later, I'll probably recognize her.
Her last name, it's a Jewish name. Anyways, yeah, she came over and did the whole thing in the interview, and I liked her no matter what because she always laughed at, you know, at all my stuff.
Sure.
And as completed the interview, she's walking out the door, and I go to shut the door, and I open it, and I'm like, oh, and she's like, she's still there, and she looks at me, and I go, how many of these have you done? I remember she just looked up at me because she was tiny. She looked up at me. She's like, I was waiting for you to ask me that. And she said, you know, this would be my first one. And Aww. She goes, if you have a problem with that, I totally understand. And I was looking at her, I'm like, oh, no, don't worry about it. This is our first one too, you know.
Oh, that's a sweet way to say it.
And she was amazing.
I don't think people get into this industry that aren't really in it.
Yeah, she was amazing.
Yeah.
She I don't know, somebody brought the pizza, but there was pizza. It was ready, like
awesome.
After. And she was like so, you know, good with, like it never felt like she was she had a few children of her own already, but she had that experience under her belt. But it was just so nice to have her there. And over the course of going to the classes and all of that, she got to know us. She got to understand my sense of humor. She got to learn Danielle, Enzo's mom. So when she came in, it wasn't like we had an unfamiliar person who didn't know us at all. And maybe going back to the uncomfortableness of having strangers around you in the hospital.
Right.
We really, and the midwife and the assistant girl, who was great too, you know, all of that time that moment had come, we had all worked together to get to that moment.
That's nice.
And it felt really safe, surrounded by love. And when Enzo popped out, and not a lot of dads get this experience, but when he was coming out, the assistant girl grabbed my hand and made me reach out, and I got to pull him out.
Yeah.
And that was great.
Yeah.
You know, until we took him to this, you know, like nobody took him away from me.
Yeah.
He didn't go down the hall.
Nope.
Wasn't back in 30 minutes.
Nope.
I mean,
all the checks are there.
He was just sat in the bed. After about 30, 45 minutes, they said, all right, we got to go.
That was fast.
Well, you know, maybe
it was
a
probably
little,
2 or 3, maybe 4 hours.
Yeah,
it depends.
It might have been that. But, you know.
Yeah, there's a lot of checks that go on.
But there was a moment, there was a moment there where, you know, they said, you know, they were saying goodbye. I think Wendy stayed a little longer, but they said goodbye. And then it's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You know, we got this kid, and then mom's like, I'm tired. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what do I do? And I always tell Enzo, like, there was like a week where I just kept you right here. And I feel that he's never really been out of my sight since then.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, even when I took him to the doctor the other day, you know, it's like now he's at the age where they gotta pull down his pants. It makes him all weird.
Oh my gosh, right.
And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, damn. You're gonna beat me anytime, any day now. You know, you wear shorts around Rebecca, huh?
But that connection is huge.
It felt great.
Because you were allowed to be present, to be organic, and to be part of something where sometimes when there's a lot of other people around or it's chaotic or things are going on, I see dads kind of get just frozen. And I oftentimes have to touch them and say, it's your baby. It's okay, you can touch your baby, because the nurses are going, the dads will do this. They won't know they can reach out. So the fact that, one, she said for you to bring your arms down, but also grabbed your arms and brought them down for you, because you're not in your thinking brain.
She grabbed me and grabbed my hands.
Yeah.
I was like,
yeah. That's one of my favorite things to tell mom and dad. Reach down, open your eyes. A lot of times moms won't have their eyes open. I'll say, open your eyes, and they just like, whoom, and they're in the room.
And you know, now that I'm thinking about it, the doula, like she caught on, because I was underneath Danielle holding her up, like she was leaning on me. And when the assistant, what was her name? When she did that, like Wendy kind of swept underneath me, propped mom up so that I can come around. Yeah. And then I think I just came off to the side, and then I just did one of these
That's
things.
amazing on her first birth that she was able to know those functions and to get involved that way.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's huge.
And then I made a joke, my first joke. I said something like, it's a dream come true. And they're like, what? And I said, I have 4 women in my bed. They're all such lovely, it was such a great experience. So I know you have, tell everybody your website.
I don't.
I know you don't.
I actually don't. I know, I get a lot of grief, and there's a very good reason behind it. I have cultivated a career, I hate to say career because it makes it sound so 9 to 5. It's not a career, it's a lifestyle, where people will refer me. And I have found that through working with people I know and being referred and being a part of this like dynamic, I end up with the right people. The worst thing in the world is to be with someone that you aren't working well with. And that still does happen, right? Where during the interview, they feel something or I feel something or whatever. Both parties have to like want to be together.
Sure.
I make a decision, they make a decision. But all of my referrals, for the most part, end up just being awesome.
Well, I was going to not give you grief about not having a website.
You can.
But all I was going to say was what you said, and that you're watching this, you know, you can reach out to me in a DM or YouTube or something or whatever, and then you can get a hold of me and hey, where do we find Laura Wright? And I'm like, you know, she's kind of like...
She's at the gym.
She's kind of like Spider-Man. You got to kind of know somebody. She might pop up. Or just go to the gym. She'll be down there.
I'll be there.
And Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
It was great.
It's fun to talk about all this.
I know that there's so much more I could have asked, but I need to learn a lot more so I can ask better questions.
Maybe as you go through your journey with what you guys are doing, there'll be more times for us to sit and chat.
I know, maybe...
You'll have different questions along the way.
Maybe it'll be you here in our house. And
maybe.
Telling me, Andy, to chill the fuck out.
Tell more jokes, make more food.
Make more food. It was really all about the food. Yeah, just really grateful to have met you.
Yeah, me too.
And the timing couldn't have been any better since we're on this journey.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's exciting. I can't wait to hear the stories.
All right. Well,
all right.
Or be part of it.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the end of this one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I know.
So cheesy, the end.
No, it is.
Where we like fist bump.
Do we do that?
Yeah.
Oh, you know what?
Is there like a
We can do one of these. Hold on. I don't edit anything. This will all be on there. I just tell him to let it all run, and then have him.
I don't think we need to edit anything out.
I don't.
Good.
Yeah, no. I just let it roll. Even when I'm getting up and looking at the camera, I'm just like, let it
organic.
Roll. For me, like that's what I always like to see. You know, the outtakes, or what's really happening.
Me swallowing my coffee. I'm sure that this picked it up a few times.
No, that's okay. Every time you pat yourself on the chest, I go up.
Which I do because my heart. I talk from my heart, so I think I did that a lot. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's like somebody in the car. They're not listening. I don't think anybody listens to this full blast. We're gonna crank up the podcast.
Yeah, for Laura's hearts.
I know. I think the only time somebody might have turned up the volume was, when John Darby was telling the world he was still single.
He talks like this. Mr. Sleek. You can leave that in. He knows I know them.
Ah.
He knows. I make